Hi, I'm Matt. I'm a teacher of sociology at Huddersfield New College, and this is a sample of a lesson that you could take part in as a student here. So a question we often get asked on the course is, what is sociology? And sociology is the study of society, of people and their behaviour in that society. And what sociologists do in terms of investigating society and people's behaviour is conduct research. And that research can be quite wide-ranging. So if we take the example of crime, we could look at crime at the local level, the impact of crime on the community. We could look at crime at a national level. So for example, dangers around the increase of knife crime recently. We could also look at crime at an international and global level. So there are really no limitations on the questions that we can ask in sociology and the answers that we can seek to find. But a question I like to ask as well is, what is the task of sociology? And the task of sociology is to uncover that which is hidden. So we could take the example of the Grenfell Tower disaster, and we could ask a number of questions around that disaster. We could ask, why did this occur in one of the poorer areas of London? We could ask, why were most of the occupants of that building from an ethnic minority background? And we could also ask why those in positions of power who have been deemed responsible for the tragedy have not yet been brought to justice. Are we saying that some groups in society are more equal than others? We also look at the role of women in society relative to that of men. So for example, it's the case that in the 1970s, when I was born, the role of women would be very different to that in the 2000s when you were born. So for example, women are now putting off the age at which they have their first child. Women are now choosing to get married at a later date if they get married at all. And women now are pursuing more careers than ever before, pursuing independence more than ever before. And that has implications because now women are competing with men for more jobs and more jobs in higher places. And boys, if you cover your ears, women now in education are outperforming boys more than ever in every GCSE subject almost, and every A-level subject almost. Girls are outperforming boys. Also, we look at interpersonal relationships, how we form relationships with others on a day-to-day basis. Do you find yourself judging other people? Do you find yourself attaching labels to people based on what society tells you you should react to them? So here's a little task for you, okay? If you look at the next slide I'm going to put up, there are going to be 5 pictures and 6 labels. What I want you to do is choose one label that best fits the picture. So 5 pictures, 6 labels. Choose one label that best fits the picture. But this is a speed test. You only have 60 seconds to do this. So set yourself a timer, 60 seconds, and go. Okay, so the question is, how did you do? Of course, the midwife was a man, and that's David, one of the only midwives in Scotland. And this speaks towards how we're socialised, how we're brought up as a boy, how we're brought up as a girl towards occupying different subjects at school and different careers as we move forward into adulthood. What are the social pressures that make boys so unlikely to go down the health and social care routes? And equally, what are the pressures for girls who still, over the last 20 years, have not seen any increase in the number of girls taking A-level physics, for example, a subject that could lead to jobs such as engineering or architecture? Why is there such a divide between the genders about what is deemed acceptable subjects to study and acceptable job roles? Our professional climber was, of course, the 80-year-old man, Yuichiro, a legend in Japan. But we wouldn't expect that of our older generation. It speaks to how we think about our older generation and the capabilities that they have, what they can offer our society. And I think this speaks as well towards how we treat them in terms of, do we make them more childlike? Do we speak more loudly to them? Do we expect less of them in our society? But there's also an issue of how we look after our elderly population. As I said before, more families are having less children now. There is less of a younger generation coming through to look after our older population. And what could be more symptomatic of an issue in society than the pandemic recently, whereby are we looking after our elderly population as well as we possibly could? The newlywed is Najude, And this speaks to a wider problem across the globe, really, of what is acceptable in terms of childhood and how childhood changes over time and by region. This would be shocking to us in our society because of how we have been socialized, how we have been raised to think about childhood, to think about what is acceptable for children relative to adults. But of course, in many regions, under many different faiths, and at many different times of our society's history, childhood gets redefined continually. And that's because childhood is socially constructed. It is made by the society in which it takes place. And therefore, different societies will have different views about what childhood really represents. Myra Hindley, quite a famous Moors murderer, along with Ian Brady. And this was shocking because, in a little way, like what I said before, in terms of our expectations of females, the one expectation that perhaps we have been grown accustomed to is that females bring children into the world, they care for them, they look after them. And here Myra Hindley was seen to murder children. It spoke to our core as a society. It shocked us that a female could do this. So again, it speaks to what we understand of female roles in society, but it also speaks to whether females are more capable of crime now more than ever. Is the pattern of female crime rising? And finally, of course, the pregnant woman was Beatty, and Beatty originally had the characteristics of a female, the reproductive organs of a female, and as he transgendered to a male, he was able to give birth to 3 children. But the images that appeared when Beatty released his story were those, and it caused quite a general shock in the newspapers because it went against the typical understanding of what pregnancy looks like in our society. And this is what sociology does. It challenges us about our views of the world around us, and it challenges us to explain what we ourselves think of that world. So there's a flavour of a sociology lesson. We hope that you get to see the bigger picture of the world around you. We hope that you start to question and challenge the world around you, and also that you start to question yourself, your own approach to others, your own approach to the problems and the issues that we face as a society together. It's a very interesting subject, as you can see, and it's also a very challenging subject. If you're ready for the challenge, we look forward to seeing you soon.